Rastro has stated, first we fix the balance and then the updates will come. And we hope it is so, because in the first 3 races we saw a totally disappointing Ferrari. And if, in the last race in Japan, we could at least hope to be ahead of Mercedes and Red Bull, it was not so, and we were behind all the top teams. Significant work and development are needed on the SF25. And in today's video, we talk exactly about this. Let's go see Ferrari's fun development and their comments on the Japan weekend, including their impressions. Also in view of the next Grand Prix that will be in Bahrain this weekend. But not only that, we also have to look at the enigma of Leclerc's power unit that had some problems in the Japan Grand Prix. Helmut Marko and Max Verstappen made humorous statements. Let's examine them before concluding. To see Ajar and Berman's statements and hear from the young racers after these season opening races. Before we start, if you like the videos on the channel, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support helps my work. With that, let's begin. The Suzuka Grand Prix still doesn't bring joy to Ferrari, who missed the podium for the 3rd consecutive race. A small positive sign comes from the final gap, which is less than in 2024. Although this data should be taken with caution considering the managed race pace and the dominant performance of Max Verstappen, who was able to keep behind the 2 McLarens, clearly the most competitive car of the weekend. Frédéric Vasseur assessed the performance of Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton after the race, providing an overview of the on-track dynamics. Leclerc finished in 4th position, almost 14 seconds behind the leader, while Hamilton finished 7th, more than 10 seconds behind Kimi Antonelli. The result is partly due to the talent of the Monegasque, and partly due to the great qualifying lap that allowed him to keep behind George Russell and an increasingly threatening Mercedes. Hamilton tried a different strategy, starting with hard tires. Initially, he kept up with the others, but at the end of the first stint and after the pit stop, Antonelli showed a superior pace. Vasseur explained there's not a big difference between mediums and hards, neither in terms of pace nor in terms of degradation. That's why Lewis managed to keep the pace at the beginning but didn't gain anything in the end. The gap is clear, but there's still room if we understand the car better.
Ferrari's team principal expresses disappointment over the team's poor start to the season.
We started with the ambition to fight for both titles, but the results are not what we wanted. However, Vasseur remains determined and sets the goal. The current gap is 2-3 tenths in qualifying and the race.
It's an honest snapshot of the moment.
We have to start from here to improve. The work in the factory and in the wind tunnel will be crucial, but according to Vasseur, updates alone will not be enough. First of all, we need to solve the balance issues that are penalizing us. If we could fully exploit the SF25, there would still be room for improvement. Developments will come, but so will others. We can't expect miracles overnight. That's why Ferrari is now closely watching the upcoming calendar events. The goal for the next 2 races is to extract all the potential from the car. Only in this way can we get back into the fight. Ferrari will bring interesting updates to Bahrain, and finally, we will see the hopeful signs we were expecting at the beginning of the season. And every detail counts, we know that. However, I do have an advantage. In fact, I use Surfshark Virtual Private Network, which is a virtual private network that allows me to access exclusive Formula 1 content from other countries. I can watch Formula 1 on Swiss television or Radio Televisión Svizzera, including their technical insights. But Surfshark allows you to do several things. You can browse safely on any network, including public Wi-Fi, by encrypting your internet protocol address. You can block annoying ads or malware. You can use it on unlimited devices, so on your phone, on your computer, and you can try Surfshark risk-free with a 30-day guarantee. I'll leave the link in the description. Use my code RASTRO at checkout so you get 4 extra months free with Surfshark Virtual Private Network in addition to an exclusive discount. Perhaps Ferrari is not yet at the top of its performance, but you can be online with Surfshark Virtual Private Network. With that said, let's get back to us. In short, Vasseur argues that the same approach from 2024 is needed. That is, to keep your feet on the ground, try to improve the balance of the single-seater first, and then go on to improve the weak points of the SF25. And despite the disappointments that we are all aware of, I want to say one thing and break a lance in favor of Ferrari. That is, the gap this year has further reduced among all the pursuers, so it really takes very little to go from 1st to 4th force. This is not an excuse for Ferrari, but if in past years 2 or 3 tenths would take you from 1st to 2nd force, this year in 2 or 3 tenths there are 4 teams. So you really have to do everything perfectly and find the right balance immediately during the race weekend. And this is what Ferrari has struggled with a lot in the first 3 weekends of the season. On a more Ferrari-friendly track, like the upcoming one in Bahrain, I believe they can perform very well, as the circuit suits the S25 car. And Vasseur also added the seasonal debut of the SF25 was below expectations, complicated by setup problems, a point that slowed the team's growth. However, Vasseur has urged not to lose calm,
recalling what happened in 2024.
I didn't spend the winter with expectations about the debut race. Like last year, we went on track to get the most out of what we had. 12 months ago, we were 6/10 from the best. We lagged in the first 2 races but caught up. The gap exists, but that's not the point. We need to continue with the same mentality. According to the Frenchman, the Suzuka weekend still showed small signs of growth. Compared to the previous race, we have taken a step forward in better understanding the car. It's not yet the level we want to be at, but it's a starting point. We need to improve in all areas, but we can do it. With 21 races remaining in the long season, Leclerc has demonstrated increased confidence with the car. Suzuka and Vasseur confirmed that Charles was more satisfied with the balance compared to the previous race. But we are still in an early phase with these cars and we are improving weekend after weekend. The key will be taking a bigger step than the others. Ferrari will likely bring the first updates to the track in Bahrain. But Vasseur tempers the enthusiasm. If we made a good step forward last year, it wasn't thanks to a magic wand. There are no updates from 3/4 improvements come by putting together many small things. 10 areas of 2-3 cents each improve balance and driver confidence, leading to growth. The SF25's main issue is its sensitivity to dirty air, as Vasseur noted about the Shanghai sprint won by Hamilton. Clean air enhances performance, but being 3-4 seconds behind another car alters behavior, increases tire degradation, and reduces consistency. It affects everyone, including Verstappen, Piastri, and Norris. At Suzuka, where degradation was minimal, the qualifying results largely determined the finishing order. With just one stop and minimal compound variation, the races could become monotonous. That's why we ask Pirelli for tires with more degradation, so the group in the race can be shuffled more. I fully agree with Vasseur on this. Following the uneventful Suzuka race with almost no overtakes in the top 10, we hope to see softer tire compounds that degrade more quickly, so as to guarantee strategies with more pit stops. And after Hamilton's disqualification in Shanghai for the wear of the bottom, the SF25 was raised at Suzuka. But Vasseur downplays it. We would all like to drive with the car as low as possible, but there are limits. The bottoming and the regulations force us to find the right compromise each time. It's a common challenge for all teams. He then recalled the case of the Austin Grand Prix 2023, when both Leclerc and Hamilton were disqualified for the same reason. Productive. Even then we were looking for the limit. It's not just our problem, or this year's, it's the same for everyone. In summary, Vasseur has analyzed Ferrari's initial races this season and I concur with all his statements. The disappointment is clear. Improvement is necessary. Ferrari has made more progress compared to 2024. Looking at the gap with the leaders, last year it was Red Bull and this year it's McLaren. However, this year Ferrari finds itself 2 or 3 tenths from the top. Last year it was 6 tenths only that the gap in the group ahead has reduced. They are all closer. But let's see in detail the updates that will arrive in Bahrain. In Maranello, they are working intensively on the first major seasonal update, namely the new bottom of the SF25, which is ready and should debut in a few days. The goal? To improve the balance and stability of the single-seater, 2 of the weak points that have clearly emerged at the start of this season. Ferrari would have liked to introduce it earlier at Suzuka, but the timing was too tight. Vasseur has curbed the enthusiasm. Better to wait for the right moment. Hamilton spoke confidently, but the team wants to be sure before putting him on the track. Suzuka once again highlighted the current limits of the single-seater, lack of balance, difficulty in cornering, and chronic understeer. The problem? The car has not yet been fully understood, as the team itself admitted. The lack of pure performance and the difficulty in tuning the setup are connected. Understeer is mainly manifested at the entrance of the curve, while on exit it turns into oversteer, an irregular behavior that the new bottom should help correct, thanks to a more efficient management of aerodynamic flows in the lower part of the car. Technically, the new bottom features changes to the geometry of the keel, which is essential to ensure the stability of the airflow under the car. Compared to the competition, Ferrari uses less complex suspensions also due to the different configuration of the suspensions, which have a softer dynamic response. One of the current limitations is related to the ground clearance. Theoretically, there would still be room to lower it to single-seater, but the risk is excessive wear of the skid or the triggering of the bouncing. Vasseur confirmed the team's intention to lower the car while staying within regulatory limits, a challenge shared by all teams. Another critical aspect is the breadth of the aerodynamic window. In fact, the SF25 works well only under very specific conditions, while Red Bull and McLaren have a wider and more flexible map. With the new bottom, Ferrari aims to also improve from this point of view, increasing the stability of the load in a wider range of setups and conditions. The new bottom of the SF25 will allow to generate more vertical load by making the best use of the currently usable ground heights. This will make it more usable in practice, improving the consistency of performance. In addition, the team wants to achieve a slight advancement of the center of pressure, a change that could reduce chronic understeer. However, the problem does not only depend on the bottom, there are other factors at play that the engineers are still working on. And certainly a new bottom will help Ferrari to try to find the balance of the car, improve the aerodynamic load developed by the bottom and the venturi channels, and find stability as the ground height varies, because that is the real problem with the SF25. But let's hear about a problem that Leclerc reported during the Suzuka Grand Prix. The Monegasque showed more awareness but also frustration compared to Lewis Hamilton. Despite having better feelings compared to previous races, the gap from Red Bull and McLaren was painful. The Monegasque is focusing on Bahrain, expecting updates to enhance the package, particularly the power unit. In fact, there was a curious and potentially significant episode that almost went unnoticed. During the race, Charles Leclerc repeatedly refused the pit wall's indication to switch to Engine 1 mode, the most powerful of the available options for the power unit. His response over the radio was clear and peremptory. "You've already told me several times, but if I don't do it, there must be a reason." A statement that raises several questions. Why would a driver refuse a more aggressive mapping of the internal combustion engine, especially during attack or defense? Telemetry analysis showed an anomaly on Hamilton's SF25. In the final part of the straights, the car was losing up to 3.1 miles per hour of maximum speed compared to the competition. A phenomenon known as clipping, that is, the drop in power resulting from a conservative management of electrical energy or from problems related to the hybrid unit. The question at this point is legitimate. Leclerc noticed something anomalous from the dashboard. A possible alarm to temperatures, excessive consumption? In fact, engine modes are normally managed by the pit wall based on real-time data received, and a driver does not oppose a team's indication unless he has perceived a concrete risk. It's unlikely that Ferrari will publicly clarify what happened. The team historically tends to not comment on controversial technical incidents, maintaining a low profile that often ends up fueling further doubts. What is certain is that the power unit 066/15, at least in Japan, did not provide the answers that were expected. At the start of the race, the top speeds of both SF25CR were good, showing no signs of clipping.
Paradoxically.
Ironically, just when the fuel load was greatest and more power was needed, the speeds were in line. It's in the second stint that the performance dropped, leaving the impression that something in the management of the power unit did not work properly. And we saw it together yesterday with telemetry, where both Leclerc and Hamilton were experiencing clipping at the end of the straights, going slower than their opponents, when the overall load level of the car was similar to both Red Bull and McLaren. With the first package of updates arriving in Bahrain, a concrete response is expected from the Maranello team, but before even the developments, it will be crucial to understand and better exploit what is already available, because if the engine is forced to work with the brake, hand pull the no bottom or wing can really change the fate of Ferrari, and this is a problem not to underestimate. Attention to the engine if they have 4 available during the season, and if Ferrari starts already with the brake pulled in the first races of the season on the power unit, that freshest attention to the rest of the season. So yes, updates will be crucial, but also making the most of the engine on the straights is just as important. Sure, the result of Japan would not have changed anyway, even with a more powerful engine, but it is important to note this detail, that while the others run with the engine at 100%, Ferrari runs slightly more underpowered. But let's also see the words of Helmut Marko on Verstappen's victory in Japan. "The setup has improved, but only Max could win like this." This is what Helmut Marko said. The RB21 indeed raced with a white and red livery in honor of Honda, and Verstappen won the home Grand Prix before the farewell of the Japanese engine manufacturer at the end of the season. Verstappen built his success already on Saturday, hitting a crucial pole on a track where track position is everything. Suzuka, with its fast curves and only one drag reduction system zone, indeed makes it very difficult to overtake, especially if you're stuck in dirty air, as Vasseur also emphasized earlier. Despite a potentially faster McLaren, the Dutchman set the pace and masterfully managed the race. He kept the two MCL 39s consistently out of the drag reduction system zone, making the most of the characteristics of his Red Bull and above all his coolness. Helmut Marko said only Max could do 53 laps like this. Only he could win in this way, and it's incredible that he did 53 laps without making mistakes. And tactically too, when Norris was approaching the RS zone, Max took off 2/10. Impressive. And the Suzuka weekend showed how competitive the RB21 still is, if put in ideal conditions. In fact, Moodmark said that the car has greatly improved on the setup, but Max was simply incredible. We still have to work on the car, and the operating window is too narrow, and we can't always bring out its potential. Verstappen teased Norris and Piastri, saying they wouldn't have seen him if he was in a McLaren. Starting in pole was crucial. The McLaren was faster, but it never managed to get into the RS zone. This let me manage the race at my own pace, error-free. And these statements from Max put psychological pressure on the rivals, particularly on Norris, who once again made a mistake in the Japanese Grand Prix, going into the grass when exiting the pit lane. Verstappen commented on it in the post-podium as if he had used a lawnmower to cut the grass off the track, referring to the incident with Norris. And this puts even more pressure on the English driver, who not only lost last year's world title to Max Verstappen, who won it instead, but also this year, despite having the best car, Norris can't attack the Dutchman who is ahead of him. And this is a strategy that all champions usually do, that is to put psychological pressure on the opponent when they are in the best conditions. Verstappen has praised Red Bull for making the right choices before the qualifiers, but the Dutch driver remains cautious, looking forward to the next appointment in Bahrain. It was a great result, but here at Suzuka the qualifiers were everything. It doesn't mean that we have solved everything or that we will win every race, but we can be satisfied with what we have done so far. In fact, it's true. Verstappen deserves much of the credit for his victory in Japan, because he made the difference on the track, securing the pole and winning the race in the lead. Staying away from the dirty area was crucial. Red Bull has significantly improved over the weekend with a very competitive car, close to McLaren's level. But be careful, because Red Bull is split in two. Verstappen performed well, while Tsunoda struggled more than in the first two races, not having a great weekend. The gap between Verstappen and Tsunoda remains significant. But there's a driver who could outdo Tsunoda in the upcoming races, as he already did in Japan, and he might even get ahead and challenge him for that spot in Red Bull, which Tsunoda just took. In fact, Hajar scores the first points and had a perfect race. The car was solid in every condition. He stated they maximized everything, and he's overjoyed. Isaac Hajar is one of the rookies this season, and in Racing Bull he's doing some great races, often ranking in the top 10. It was the perfect race, the first time this year where I'm truly happy. The 8th place was our goal, and we achieved it without relying on others' problems. We maximized our performance. The first 3 races prove we have a strong car in all conditions, despite unimpressive tests. This boosts our future confidence. Lawson from Racing Bulls tried a different strategy that failed as he struggles to adapt to the new car. Team principal Mechi praised Ajar's flawless race, but emphasized the importance of upcoming developments and hard work to maintain their position. But we must acknowledge Berman's excellent performance, scoring points at Suzuka. They optimized everything, and the new bottom is effective. In fact, Ollie Berman commented on his race like this: I think today we got the most out of it. We didn't have the pace to fight with Williams or Vicar, but I didn't mind the solitary race. Another young man who did very well is definitely Kimi Antonelli, who was leading for part of the race, also made the fast lap, and at the end of the race was running like Verstappen with a better pace even compared to George Russell, his teammate. So we expect a lot from the young ones in the upcoming races. Watch out for those who ask me about Russell's level in Mercedes, and we'll see what he can also do in Bahrain, a track that he likes a lot. Let me know in the comments your opinion on Ferrari's updates, the relaunch, Vasseur's statements, and everything we covered in the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated with new videos on the channel. Every day I keep you updated on all the Formula 1 news and specifically on Ferrari. I leave you with other related videos. At Rastre Tutto, see you next time.